In the last 18 months, gold did what gold always does. It went up steadily, like your most boring uncle who just keeps being right. Meanwhile, copper did what copper always does. It tracked the global economy, building things, and followed the vibe. But silver broke both rule books at once. The first rule book said that precious metals are supposed to behave like insurance. When the world gets uncertain, they go up slowly like a safety net. The second rule book said industrial metals are supposed to rise and fall with the economy. So if factories are down, demand drops, and that's why prices suffer. But silver looked at both those rule books and said, yeah, I'm not doing either of those. It went to 3.3 lakh rupees per kilo on MCX and then it crashed over 40%. The same metal that was supposed to protect investors became the one that destroyed portfolios. So, what exactly happened? To answer that, you have to understand that silver has an identity crisis. And that identity crisis is both its biggest opportunity and its biggest danger. So, today I'm not here to tell you, okay, now today buy silver please. I'm not going to read you the brokerage brochure that says gold for safety, silver for upside. I read the earnings calls, the customs data, and the futures contracts. Because everyone can see a price chart, but very few people look at what's underneath it. The companies actually using these metals, the ships that move them across the border, or the F&O folks who are using leverage to trade with them. Because the price tells you what happened, but the mechanism tells you why it happened and whether the story can survive. And what I found is uncomfortable. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what these three metals are actually doing and which one, if any, deserves your attention in 2026. Hi, I'm Arunima and you're watching How Bizarre. So, let's begin. Before we get into the chaos, I need to give you a mental model because if you don't understand what each of these metals fundamentally is, none of the price action would make any sense. Now, think of it as a spectrum. Gold sits at one end. Gold is money you cannot print. That's it. That's the entire thesis. And when central banks don't trust each other, they buy gold. When governments devalue their currencies, people buy gold. When the world gets scary, the answer is gold. It doesn't build anything. It doesn't plug into your EV. It just holds value across centuries. On a normal day, gold barely moves, which is exactly the point. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we have copper. Copper is the opposite of gold. It's pure industrial muscle. Every EV needs roughly 80 kgs of copper. Every AI data center is basically like a building-sized copper sponge. Every solar panel farm or every power grid upgrade or every 5G tower, all of it requires copper. Copper doesn't care about your feelings or what the US Fed, the central bank of the US, actually does. It tracks one thing. Is the world actually building stuff? If yes, then copper goes up. If a recession hits and construction falls, then copper also falls. It's simple that way. It's just absolutely brutal. And then, somewhere in the middle of the spectrum is silver. It's basically wearing two hats at once. One part store of value like gold and one part industrial metal like copper. And that is exactly why its chart looks absolutely unhinged. It ends up getting pulled in both these directions simultaneously. And when both these forces align, then silver can 10x. But if they end up diverging, that's when silver gets liquidated in ways that makes even, very senior F&O trader go quiet. So keep this spectrum in mind. Everything that I'm going to say after this is going to be seen through that lens. Okay, now let's get into the actual story of what unfolded and how each metal behaved and why. First, let's talk about gold. Gold crossed 1 lakh rupees per 10 grams this year, and unlike some assets, this wasn't hype, it was very, very structural. Central banks, especially from China and Russia and yours truly India, have been buying gold at the fastest pace since the 1960s. They are deliberately moving away from holding US dollar reserves. Now, think about the psychology here. A hedge fund can change its mind the next quarter, but a country building its reserves is thinking in decades. It's not flaky that way. That tells you this wasn't just a short-term trade. It was part of a much bigger shift in how countries think about money, currency risk, and financial security. And there was another story running parallel underneath all of this, and it's about trust. After COVID, governments around the world injected a lot of money, like enormous amounts of money, into their economy. And as a result of that, inflation went up. People started questioning how much their paper currency would be worth, not now, but 10 years from now. Gold has survived exactly these moments for some thousands of years. But the catch is you're buying nearly at the all-time highs, and gold pays you nothing. There's no dividend, there's no interest, no yield. If I were to put it simply, it's like an investment decision on everything else getting worse, not that gold itself is getting better. Basically, अगर दुनिया ठीक हो जाती है, gold stagnates. That is the trade-off that you're accepting. Now let's come to copper. This is the one that smart money is actually excited about. It's the word being used in mining boardrooms right now, also because it's in super cycle. A super cycle means a decade-long structural uptrend in price, a change in demand that can keep influencing the market for years to come. And the reason people are using that word for copper is very simple. The world is trying to electrify itself at a scale we have genuinely never seen before. EV needs copper, AI data centers need copper, the entire green energy transition needs copper at a scale humanity has never even attempted. In fact, the International Copper Association estimates that we need to double annual copper production by 2035 just to meet climate targets. But there's a problem. The supply just cannot keep up, not even close. The grade of copper ore that's in the ground, meaning the quality of rock that you're mining, that has declined by 30% over the last 2 decades. Mining companies today have to crush 3 times as much rock to get the same amount of copper that they did in 2000. What that means is more energy, more cost, more time. And here's the math. Opening a single new copper mine takes between 5 and 15 years. So the demand is here, but the supply just can't show up until the 2030s. यही असली gap है. Now here's where the story gets interesting. A rising copper price doesn't mean that everyone in the copper chain is celebrating. The miners, yes, who are extracting copper from the ground, they are benefiting because they own that scarce resource. The processors sitting in the middle have a much tougher job. They're competing for limited copper ore, paying higher costs and watching their margins come down. So, two companies can be part of this copper boom and have completely opposite experiences. Now, for India, this is genuinely a critical situation. In 2018, there was a Sterlite plant which was shut down because of protests. And just like that, India went from a copper exporter to a net importer. We literally don't have the reserves in our soil. India's copper future is extremely import dependent, which means that we're depending on Latin American mines and Chilean logistics to fuel our own EV revolution and our AI infrastructure. And sure, Adani and Hindalco are building new processing plants, that's very real, but they'll process imported copper blocks. The raw material still has to come from outside. So the catch with copper is this, that it's deeply cyclical. So the moment there's a bad recession, I'm talking about real unemployment, construction stopping, EV sales falling, that's when copper gives back everything. You'll be holding a commodity heavily dependent on global optimism. And now, time for silver. It had a wild ride, going up to over 3 lakh rupees per kilo on MCX, and then the 44% crash versus gold and copper's smoother lines. To understand why silver's chart looks so insane compared to the other two, you need to understand something, calling the paper physical split. In the silver market, the paper market, the futures, contracts, ETFs, leverage positions is many times larger than the actual physical silver that is available. Earlier this year, two things happened at the same time. The fear of currencies losing value was increasing and gold was actually benefiting from that. And at the same time, industrial demand for silver in solar panels was genuinely picking up. Basically, both of the things silver is known for started gaining attention at the same time. Investors were looking at it as a precious metal, while industries were looking at it as a critical material for the energy transition. फिर क्या होना था? Speculators started piling up paper silver and that price hit record highs. And then came the reality check. The leveraged money that had entered the market started leaving. A lot of traders at that point started getting margin calls, and so then they had to close positions, and so the selling also accelerated. Market में ना एक rule बहुत simple है. Leverage works both ways. It can make your profits look extraordinary on the way up, but it can also erase those profits just as quickly on the way down. Specifically 44% in weeks. तभी लोगों को समझ आया कि silver and gold same नहीं होते. Now, is the industrial bull case for silver even real? Well, yes, solar panels use silver paste as a conductor. Global solar installations are at record highs. But here's what's in the fine print. Engineers are actively working to reduce silver dependency. I mean, even Elon Musk tweeted about it in Tesla's context. Even Indian manufacturers like Premier Energies and Renewsys are aggressively optimizing silver usage in their solar cells. The industry knows that silver is expensive and they're engineering around it. The industrial demand story is real, but the very industries driving that demand have active reason to reduce their dependence on silver. So, the more expensive silver becomes, the harder engineers work to use less of it or just find alternatives. Also, silver is the easiest of the three metals to get absolutely annihilated when you're trading because a leverage in MCX futures means a 10% move against you can actively wipe out 50% of your capital overnight. Now, let me tell you something that most finance creators won't even bother to explain. The India angle on each of these metals is completely different from the global story. Gold in India is seen as the most stable ecosystem of the three. You've got gold bees, sovereign gold bonds, digital gold, physical jewelry. The infrastructure is very entrenched and very deep. For most retail investors, this is the lowest friction entry point into the precious metals. Copper in India for retail is mostly an equity story. It's not actually a physical commodity story. So you can track Hindalco, you can study Adani copper developments. You don't sit on copper rods in your garage. For most people watching this, equity exposure is the practical route. What about silver in India? This is where it generally gets weird. So recently silver import duties got slashed and then reinstated, and that led to absolute pricing chaos. There was a period of import freeze that actually decoupled MCX silver prices from global COMEX silver prices completely. So here's the problem. The silver chart that you're obsessing over on your screen may not even actually reflect the silver trade you're actually making. If you're investing through MCX, you're exposed to global silver prices plus the rupee dollar exchange rate plus Indian import duty policy plus domestic demand dynamics. ये चार variables एक साथ move करते हैं and they don't always move in the same direction, which is why the prices look different of silver. So the person watching silver on Kitco and then thinking, oh yeah, I understand my MCX position, they actually may not. Right, so I'm not going to give you a single answer about which one to invest in or which one's the preferred one because there isn't a single right answer. What I will give you though is a framework because that's more useful than any tip. Pick the metal based on what you actually needed to do. If your goal is preservation and you're the kind of investor who loses sleep during volatility, gold may be worth considering. Gold ka appeal has never been explosive growth. People buy gold because they want something that has historically held its value when the confidence in markets, currencies, or the broader economy had started to weaken. For Indian investors, gold Bs or sovereign gold bonds are often the most practical ways to get this exposure. If you're betting on the global economy actually building the future, I'm talking about EVs, AI infrastructure, energy transition, and you can handle cyclical drawdowns, copper exposure can be considered. For most Indian retail investors, that means equity, Hindalco, Vedanta, anything adjacent to those plays, global copper mining ETFs as well. Not actually physical copper, it's never actually physical copper. If you want maximum upside, you understand the volatility and you will not, under any circumstances, use leverage. A small allocation to silver through silver bees or physical coins can be considered. But please, not your life savings, not MCX futures, just a small allocation. One blunt thing that I need you to hear is that leveraged MCX silver futures are how retail investors can get wiped out. The challenge with leveraged silver trades isn't always being wrong. Sometimes the market moves against you first and then your position gets closed, and only then does the original thesis play out. So on your dashboard, here are the signals that you need to watch out for in the next 6 months. Watch the gold silver ratio. It's a simple ratio to calculate how expensive or cheap silver is relative to gold. When this ratio is high, silver is cheap versus gold. That's when silver prices tend to go up. For context, right now it's relatively back to normal, around 61:1. Next, watch the solar industry's silver usage, that too per panel. Everyone is agreeing that solar demand is growing, yes, but the real question is whether each panel will need as much silver as it does today. If manufacturers start buying more silver per panel, not less, the situation thesis is kinda wrong. Next, watch the US Fed, which is the US's central bank. If the interest rates go up, which they might not if you're tracking the news, it's usually good news for gold and silver. Copper has a very different requirement. It requires factories to be running, construction happening, lot of activity in the economy. Also, watch India's import policy on silver. Just a single notification from Finance Ministry can move MCX prices by 8% overnight. That isn't just a global risk, it's a domestic one now suddenly. And it's easy to miss if you're only watching the international charts. Here's what I want you to walk away with. There is no best metal. There is only the metal whose behavior aligns with what you needed to do. तीनों metals अलग-अलग assets हैं and for different goals. Don't let anyone, brokerage ads, Telegram groups, YouTube thumbnails, flatten that nuance into buy X now. I'll leave you with one question that's worth sitting with. Instead of asking the question, which asset will make me the most money, why not think of a better question, which is, which risk in my life am I trying to insure against, and which asset was actually designed for that job? Think about that, because the answer is probably more specific and way more personal than you realize. That's all for today. This is Arunima Rao signing off. Until then, stay curious.